Today's release is part 1 of 2 episodes. Some listeners may remember this guest as Kristel David, but she now goes by Charlie. Charlie dated and was married to her ex-husband who played in the NFL for nearly 2 decades. They had 5 beautiful daughters, and honestly, Charlie was doing WAG content before most knew what to do with the space of pro athlete wives. After taking a step back from social media to navigate divorce and heal for nearly 2 years, today she's ready to talk. We're diving into love, divorce, where it all went wrong, and the realities of marrying into the league. Now, while you listen to this episode, keep an open heart and mind, as my goal for this podcast is to bring in opinions, journeys, and guests from all walks of life. And I hope that this creates a space for all women to feel seen, supported, and inspired. Now, let's get into this episode. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Anissa McLaughlin. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Supporting His, Fulfilling Yours. Today is a very special episode because today I am with Charlie Rain, who was formerly known as Kristel David. And this is the first time Charlie will be speaking out in nearly 2 years, since a lot has happened over the years. You've had a huge following. And for some backstory on who Charlie is an entrepreneur. She is a life coach. She is a model, actress, everything under the sun. But she was also married to an NFL player for a long time. How long were you guys together?
We were together since I was 18, so 18 years. I say we were married 18 years because
Yeah.
I was being wifey from day one.
Period.
Period. And then we were married 12 years and have 5 babies.
5 girls. 5 girls.
Yeah.
That's important too.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
like girls, 5 girls.
daughters.
Before we dive in, just note 5 daughters.
Yeah.
And she was beside her man, and unfortunately things changed. And so we are going to talk about the highs, the lows, all of it, because it matters. And we want to bring transparency, and I'm so honored that you are coming on this podcast to talk to me about this after you've been quiet for so long. And for a minute you were very vocal about what was going on, but you had to like recenter, right? And like refocus, but now you're in a place it's coming from a different place of healing. And
I feel ready to, I'm not spilling tea today, although it is juicy, I would say. But yes, I'm like from a healed place, and I'm honored. We were saying this offline, but like, I really do feel like this is like, you know, like in the tabloids, like Charlie Rain speaks out for the first time, like exclusive interview. So thank you for being the one that's holding the space to receive my story for the first time in a format that, you know, I've given bits and pieces, and people who know me offline have gotten, you know, what's going on, but I have had to be quiet for legal reasons and for personal reasons and for all kinds of reasons. But I'm ready to share a big chunk of my story now. And so it's like my heart is so full that you wanted to hear it, you know?
1,000%. I mean, I've been following you for so long, and I just want to say we're going to get to the name change. We're not tabling that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I have followed you for several years. And I saw the highs and the peaks, and like you were creating such a space for young women who were navigating dating a professional athlete and like how to support them better. And like you were like the like head, the figurehead of what that is. Yeah, you were. And like that gave me a lot of hope. And like that's when I met you years ago. And I was like, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. And like it's beautiful. And then we saw so much of a change. So I want to start from like the beginning. You guys started dating when you were teens.
Yeah. So I love, it's interesting as I'm unraveling, grieving the loss of what I thought was going to be, because I come from both of my grandparents were married till they died. So I don't come from families that we leave when things get tough. I didn't leave because of infidelity. I didn't leave because of, you know, it got tough, or after the league he was no longer that guy. So it was none of that. And so as I've like really had to dig into, well, what did happen, right? Because when people ask me, I'm like, I still don't even know if I left or if I got left, right? So like that in itself is like ambiguous for a number of reasons. But my point is that I would like to believe it was true love. It was a true love story, even though the way things ended, it's like, did he really love me? Like, were we, you know? And so what I think is really, really important for all of us to understand about partnership is that there is a difference. Like, you can have love, because as humans, we love, right? But just because we love someone doesn't mean we're equally yoked and that we're meant to build and grow together. And so I'll expand on that a little bit, but before I do, when you say start from the beginning, what part of the story do you want? Like how we met, or like what part do you want?
So first, let's hear how you guys met.
Yeah, so that's the other reason why I feel like it was love, because it wasn't like I was like, okay, I'm about to get me a, because there are women out there who they know what they want, and I'm not even hating ladies, like, do you, boo?
Right.
But I was in high school. I had a high school boyfriend. I was head over heels with him. And my track coach is my ex-husband's sister. So she would see my character and my personality, and that I was beautiful, and I was like that girl. And she's like, I want you to be with my brother. So she kind of like would do things like take me outside of track practice and do like extra training, but her brother would be there. Yeah. Things like that. And it was cute because it was like, I have a boyfriend. And so I was genuinely like, that kind of worked in my favor, because I wasn't leaving my man for this NFL. He was on his way to his rookie season.
Okay.
But it was flattering, you know, it was flattering to be in high school. And in my book, I say I went straight to the pros. Like at that point, when you're raised with this fairy tale vision of like, find the husband, have the kids, get the house, get a good job, live, then retire, die. It's like, well, what I'm skipping straight to the top.
The best,
he's athletic, he's good looking, he's charismatic, he's a leader, he's in the league, he's got money, he was taking me on trips, he was buying me things. So it was like, I was this broke little high school to college student. What more to life was there? So he basically locked me down, and it was like, I didn't even really go through college, because I was like driving to him, going to league games. I didn't really do the whole college thing, because I had already skipped past that part.
But you did go to college.
I went to college. I actually followed him. So he played for the Colts. So I went to Purdue, Boiler Up. And I loved it. I mean, I had fun, but in hindsight, I would have slowed down a little. I would have been like, okay, like it's okay to be in love, and it's okay to like go and be with your man, but like during the week, be in college. But I was more so like, oh, I have to be, you know, like I would do things like drive, like, okay, if they had game day Sunday and it was an away game and I didn't go, I would, instead of being like, okay, he's gone, this is my opportunity to do me. I was driving to his house like, I'm in your bed, Daddy. Have a good game tomorrow. Like,
like waiting for you. You were like full wifey mode.
Full. That's why I'm saying I've been married since 18. Okay.
Yeah.
And that I don't condone, because I think there's levels to it.
For
and it's like, don't give all yourself so soon, because that's how you lose yourself, and then you don't really know who you are. So in those college years, when I really should have been getting to know me, maybe before we had 5 kids, he would have seen like, this girl's crazy. Like she wants to change the world. She thinks she's Mother Teresa. And I don't want that kind of wife. Because a lot of men don't want a world changing wife. They want a wife that just wants to be in the house.
Stay there and play her
down,
part.
be cute, be pretty. And so I don't blame him for like, I'll never forget. I know we're fast forwarding and then I'll kind of pin it. But I'll never forget when I was like, why are we doing this? Like, we can make this work. He's like, and I'm like, why aren't you begging for me to, like, why aren't you fighting for me? And he's like, I do love you. That's why I'm letting you go. Like, I didn't marry a sex educator. I didn't marry a world changer. I didn't marry the woman you're trying to be. I married the woman who I thought you were. And now that you're changing that, I can't blame him. He's right. It's like, he wanted a certain type of wife. That's not what I was, you know. And I'm not saying, I do believe men should evolve with their women, but this is why I think it's important to talk about. Because going into a marriage, you got to know, like, what are we going to do if we decide to change one day? Are we going to be okay to go separate ways and not become enemies? Or are we going to grow together, you know? So.
And that's why like this podcast is so important, because I had to navigate that. And it's like, we're either going to grow together or grow apart. When you start dating so young, and so many athletes, like those relationships start either like when they're at the peak of their career or like before they even get there. And when you do that, you sacrifice so much for them, for the career, because you can't change your location. You know, like you don't control where they play. You don't control so much of your life, to where you start to unfold on so many things over the years that years go by and you're like,
you don't even realize it.
Who you are, what you've done. And that sacrifice is so big. And I'm glad I realized it back then, because I was like, I was resenting my husband. Like we were just boyfriend and girlfriend, but I was just like, you're over here living your best life. Like you're living your dream, which I was so happy. But I was like, I feel so unfulfilled. Like God did not put me here to be in the house.
Yeah.
And like, that's something, but when you realize that, and I'm fast forwarding now, it was way into the marriage. So you guys you were living your best life. You're like, this is peak energy. Like I'm living my life. My man has money. I'm good. I'm in college. Life is good.
Picking me up in the range. Like what? It's like what?
Yeah, you were living your best life for sure. On paper, like what it looked like. Yes, on paper, it was like, phew, who could be mad?
I had checked the American dream boxes.
Yeah. And then did you guys get married first, or did you have your first daughter?
Yeah, I had my first daughter in college. So my junior year. And this is the thing, like, I'll never take away from my ex-husband who he was when he was who he was, if that makes sense. In the sense of like, I think divorce, death, like things that end so darkly, it reveals some things in people and things can go like this. But when we were in that point, I mean, I got pregnant my junior year in college. I'll never forget, I was giving full-blown presentations in class, riding the school bus with a belly. And for whatever reason, I guess because I knew I was with an NFL baby, I was like, I'm not even embarrassed. Like, y'all can look at me. Yep, I'm in here. Like, yep, he knocks me up. And, like, I don't know why. I just was not embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
But my point is that then, so that was my junior year. I had my daughter that summer. And I remember walking into my counselor's office and being like, I'm pregnant. So, like, what does this mean for my senior year to graduate? I didn't know what it was going to be like to be a mom. And she told me, she said, yeah, you know, college will always be there. You should probably just take off. It's really hard to be a mom. And because I'm such a rebel, I'm like, oh, so you think I can't do it?
Right.
Bet. So we came up with our whole plan. I had her that summer. I did my first semester with my baby online at home in Louisiana because he had transferred. So I'll never forget being on the phone with my mom, and I'm like, he's going to the States, and like bawling, crying, like, I need to stay here because I have to graduate. And how am I going to do this? Like belly cries, right? And my mom was like, Kristel, my mom was, you know, a wise woman. So she's like, you're fine. Like, you're going to be able to figure it out. Like, because he has the resources, you guys will be able to figure it out. So that was like my first lesson of where there's a will, there's a way. You got to calm down and not think that it's the end of the world of anything. There's always a solution to a problem. And so when I calmed down, we decided we were going to do my first semester online. And that was when my counselor helped me get all my classes online. And I did that. And when I had to take tests, my neighbors would babysit or he would watch the baby. So we figured that out. And luckily, because like you said, I was 21, so our neighbors were like doctors and lawyers. And then it was like, so I was like, can you watch my baby? They had kids, like they were 35 plus, and I was this little baby having a baby, but they helped me. I had a little village. And then I went back to school and we rented a little house, and he was in off season my second semester. So he stayed and did daddy daycare and watched our daughter while I did class. And then I graduated in it, and I loved him for that. Like I thought that was so dope that he gave up his off season. But in hindsight, it's like, he didn't give it up. That's his baby. Like, you're a dad. That's your job. Like, I'm giving you too much. Like, have you ever seen those reels on Instagram where it's like a mom doing this, then it's like, girl, please. And then a dad, it's like the dad carries the baby. We're like,
yeah, like, look at him. Yeah, he's so amazing.
But anyways, I still think credit is due there. For sure. He didn't have to do that.
Yeah, and also, like, many guys I've seen, too, where, like, the girls will be in college, and then they make it, and he's like, you don't have to do that no more. Like, come with me. And the girl's like, okay. Like, but I'm like, no, babe, get your degree first, and then come. So it's, like, the fact that he didn't, like, try to pull you away from finishing, I think that's awesome. And, like, you guys were still growing together. You were, like, that was nice. Okay, so then you guys have... Then you have your baby girl, you graduate, and then you guys get married.
Yeah, and then we were going to do it right. So we, like, you know, he finished playing actually, like, shortly thereafter. And then we moved back home, and we started looking for our first house. And so we were just checking off the boxes. We were going through the motions. Life was sweet. We were doing all the baby showers and birthday parties. And then, you know, it was like then the engagement party. And since I was 21, when I was pregnant, I turned 21 July, and then I had my daughter in August. So he, on my 22nd birthday, he threw this big bash for me in Vegas, and it was like he was replacing my 21st birthday, and I was so excited. And I always tell a funny story how I was, you know, my content was a lot about being the crazy jealous, going through his phone. So I was going through his phone, and I'm like, who is this that he's talking to? And then I was like, oh, and I kind of caught the surprise because he was inviting my friends. Yeah. I'm like, why is he texting my friend? Like, right. Like, wait, I know this number. And then I was like, oops. So then I kind of knew.
To play it off.
But the surprise that I didn't blow was that it was also my engagement party. So he proposed on my 22nd birthday in Vegas. It was a beautiful all-white party. So dope. So good job. Right. And then beautiful big ring, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
like his ring, which I always used to be like, yeah, he knew what he was doing, because he was like, you know, he peed on that bush, right? But like I loved that. So we did that, and then we got married when I was 24. And then we started trying, and we actually planned our second daughter. So then she came, and then from her, all the rest of my kids were like, oh, I'm pregnant again.
I feel like you were pregnant every summer for like 3-4 years.
They were back. They were 2 years apart. It was like as soon as I would stop breastfeeding, it was like we were back on the train again.
Like, it was crazy following you, and you're like at Coachella pregnant, and then you'd have a baby, and then boom, I'm like, okay, Fertile Myrtle, like, one thing we knew what y'all were up to, okay? But, okay, now I do want to ask this. Through all of that, like, it sounds beautiful, but was there infidelity?
So this is the thing. I always looked at, like, okay, before we were even married and before we even had a daughter, I remember I was going through his phone, because this was something I talked about very openly.
Often,
like, that I was like a habitual, like when I was in college, y'all, like for anybody who can go all the way back to the side, you may not know anything about this, but we had a sidekick. So it was like, okay,
sure did.
So
yep. Aim, all of it.
What was the one that was like it was after a basketball player, I think, because it was white and it had like basketball gripping. Anyways, it was like a special edition. So I remember I had his his T-Mobile dashboard. So when I would come from class, I would log into the computer and I would check his email, his text messages, his instant messages. And it was like, in hindsight, I was like you know, like if you picture someone in like a control center, like tracking, like, okay, now he's getting on the freeway. Yeah. Okay, that was me. Like, terrible.
Why?
I'm not proud of this.
Where did that come from?
It was an addiction. So it was like, it started from an inkling. So I definitely think women do feel something, right?
1,000%.
So I felt
your intuition was.
But once I found something, then I was hooked. And it was one of those things where I'll never forget. I was at his house, he was gone, and I called my dad out of all people, because my dad didn't necessarily raise me. So it's not like we had the relationship of like, daddy. But for whatever reason, I called my dad, and I'm like, Dad, like, I found him, like, he had went to a basketball game with some girl. So what I would find was never like blatant like pictures or come sit on this, you know, like, it wasn't like, it was sex, but it was for sure flirting with other women and linking up. So that was enough for me, because I was the girl that was like, one time we drove through Chick-fil-A and she called him by the first name. I'm like, how does she know your name? He was like, they ask it at the window. And I was like, oh. So like, that was like, don't even, or when we would go out to the club and they'd be like, what do you want, sweet? It came from that inkling. And when I found something, I was hooked. Yeah. And at that point, so here's the thing. From that point, like I said, that was before kids. So, I mean, it was through our whole relationship. I was not only hooked, but I also was desensitized. So what I mean by that is I wasn't looking for, like, I got used to like, okay, he talks to other women, but as long as he's not sleeping with them, I'm not going to blow my cover. So I would never blow my cover, because in the first years, I blew my cover all the time. Yeah. Then his passwords would change, and then I'd have to figure out a way to hack back in. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not about to do that. So I started becoming like a vet at the snooping game.
Like picking your battles of what you were going to acknowledge.
But that desensitized me. So my answer, long-winded answer to you, is that I never had red-handed proof. Okay. The closest I ever got was like, like, I remember there was an exchange of information of like, I guess I'll keep your jacket since it smells like you and I'm not going to see you for a while. Like, come on now. If I don't think they slept together.
Right.
Or he was like, thanks for wearing those sexy panties. And then when I called him out, I did call him out on that one.
Yeah.
He was like, she bent over and I saw her panties. It was a joke. And I was like, oh, okay, that could be true. So I would always believe his whatever he would tell me.
Yeah.
So I guess like the reason why I'm giving you that is like what I would want to, like, this is the part where it's like, it's juicy, but let's put the laughs aside. And it's like, to all the women listening, if you feel like there's infidelity, once you have to go snooping, it's a wrap. Like, you have to know it's a wrap. So what I mean by a wrap is it's either time to have a sit down conversation of like, okay, I see that you can't be with one woman and you're not ready for that. And here's the thing. When it comes to men in these positions, I'm not saying they get a pass, but I'm saying a majority of them do move in a different way. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And a lot of them justify it. So it's like, I do think women have to be realistic and they have to be honest with themselves. Like, what are my non-negotiables? So I'll give you one concrete example and then I'll like turn it to you because I know I could talk all day.
This is good.
But when I was teaching this, I interviewed a marriage therapist, family therapist, and she said that she worked with a lot of high-end clients that, like, by high-end, I mean like the men and or women were like high profile, in the limelight, made a lot of money. And there was this one particular guy who was like a rock star. And when they were doing their counseling, the wife was just like, it wouldn't be realistic for me to think that he's never going to go and sleep with one of these girls when he's on the road for 6 months on tour. Yeah. And so I'm okay with knowing that. But for me, what's important is that he doesn't embarrass me, that he doesn't get anyone pregnant, and that he doesn't bring home any diseases. And so I think we call that respectful cheating now in this day and age. And back then I was like, oh, heck no.
Yeah.
No.
My blood's boiling already.
Yes. But I will tell you, being where I'm at over here
Yeah.
as a 37-year-old with 5 kids, 2 years out of a divorce, I wish I would have had that conversation. I wish I would have come to that level of acceptance. Because, see, here's the thing. I was accepting it anyways.
Yeah.
I was still there.
Yeah.
I was still going through his phone, finding things. So if I would have just relinquished it and been like, you know what? He takes care of home. My bills are paid. He comes home every day. I haven't got an STD. He takes care of these babies. I'm going to just chill and save my own health because I was dying. That stress every single day, that adrenaline, y'all know, that belly,
right? Because everyone, if you say you haven't gone through a man's phone, beating, for sure.
That is trauma on your body every day. And I was having autoimmune symptoms, so I went to a doctor and he told me, he's like, you do realize every time you think of your partner cheating on you, your body's going through that trauma. So can you imagine I was putting myself through that trauma for umpteen years?
Yeah. That's insane. And that's you saying that. I feel like there's a lot of women who have accepted that. And like, that's a different perspective that I haven't thought of because I've met a lot of women who are like, they've been there.
Yeah.
And they're like, girl, they go through the phones, they do all those things, but like they don't say anything and they just like suffer in silence. But I also see there's women who very much know what's going on, but they're like, as long as he doesn't embarrass me, like whatever, because what am I gonna do?
When you're on my side where it's like I lost all of that and I don't have a man providing for me and I don't have my castle anymore, there are days, you better believe, that I'm like, I don't even care what he was doing when he wasn't with me. Like he was with me enough that I was tripping, but we didn't leave because, I mean, we didn't separate because of just that. But for women who genuinely do have like a stand-up good guy and they're fulfilled and happy in their relationship, but your only fear is that he might be with one other woman, I think we all need to be realistic that, especially like us, where we're getting with these men at so young and we think we're going to be with them for the rest of our life, that there's never once going to be a moment where they flirt with another woman or something accidentally happens. It's like, men are not women. See, when we sleep with someone, we're attached, we're emotional. Men can literally F something and not even remember her face, name, and not give two shits about her. And that's real. I do believe it. I'm not condoning this. I'm not condoning it. I do believe men get to heal and they get to have self-control. But I am saying I don't believe infidelity is a reason to break up a family. I don't. I think there's ways around it, and I think it's a conversation.
Yeah. And I think that also makes a lot of women feel seen, because that's a hard thing to admit, especially if you've never been there. You've gone through it all and you went through with the divorce. So like, that's you've been there, done that, so you can speak on it. I can't say that because they're like,
because you don't want to think that about your man,
right? Now I'm like, trust delusional.
No, and Delulu is the Sululu, right? Because I'll tell you. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but I think you saying that makes a lot of women feel like, okay, I'm not trash for thinking like that, because some people who are outside of this lifestyle will be like, you will accept that. But I said this on another podcast the other day. I'm like, girl, even the broke ones cheat. Even like it does not matter. They're the worst because they don't have no job. They have all the time in the world, so they just running amok. Like, so it's like it does not matter. And like I said, if they're gonna cheat, they're gonna cheat.
Yeah.
But like if they heal, that's a whole different thing. But if you have an unhealed man, is like what I'm interpreting this like, and that's the only thing that could be a discussion of an honest conversation of like, what's the solution to where we're both fulfilled in this marriage, this relationship. And
I like, so to your point, when I was in it, where I'm not gonna say where you're at, but like, I respect this. Again, like, let me just say this to my future husband. I'm not okay. I will still cut a bitch. Okay, so like, no, we're not condoning respectful cheating. Yeah. But what we are saying is, let's have the conversation because it's real. Let's have the conversation. I think the conversation gets to be had because men have been writing this universal dialogue that if I go out of overseas, it doesn't count. Or if I do it out of town and it's not in her backyard, it doesn't count. They have all these mental logics that make them justify their actions because they genuinely believe that, because they genuinely can. Because I used to be like, how can you look me in the face and come home and kiss me and lay up next to me after you was just laying up next to somebody else? But they literally can. So the fact that biologically that's possible, it's a different conversation. And but I will say, so when I was in it, I called a girl that was in his phone and she was like, girl, this is cute, but honey, like if you're going through his phone, like this is one of the girls in his phone giving me advice. Like if you're going through his phone, then you might need to just like, I don't remember what she said, but she was basically like, you're tripping and you're da-da-da. And I remember I was so mad, but then when I fast forward, I'm like, dang, she was probably coming from where I'm coming from now. And I remember one of my, Sheila Marie, she's one of my favorites on Insta. She said one time in an interview that I interviewed her, she said, when a man cheats, women focus on the wrong thing. It's like, how could you? And she's uglier than me and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, when a man cheats, ask your man, what was that woman being for you that I'm not? What were you getting from that? And it's often peace. Because, side girls don't come with, you didn't do this and you said, and I'm tired, take these babies. You have me at home. I'm unfulfilled. The side girl is just like, hey, baby. And she's still in her soft girl era because she doesn't have the baggage. She doesn't have the history. Or maybe she's being the freakier one because women traditionally are taught to be wives. So we're good girls. I know I struggle with that in my marriage because it was like, oh, I'm a wife. So I don't want like, I don't know how vulgar we can be, but like, you don't want to be showed out too much. Like that's like I used to remember, like I want to try this, but he's gonna be like, where did this come from? But it was really just coming from my expression of wanting to explore whatever. So I say all that to say is like a lot of men, I learned this compartmentalized, like wifey pops the babies out, holds down the fort. A lot of men can't even picture us kissing the babies knowing that we had stuff in our mouth. Like, and I'm like, what? Like, but that's a real thing. So they save that for the other girls. And I'm like, wow, like there's so many levels to this. So it's like, can we just have the conversation? Like we need to talk more about it. Cause I think I know I'm saying so much, but there was this other reel that I saw recently of a man saying that a lot of men have a lot of sexual trauma as well. And so they're creating alter egos because like this guy particular said he got caught watching porn by his mom and she reprimanded him. So he created like porn is bad, sex is bad. So he created like an alter ego, like this is where I do sex and this is where I'm the husband, the good guy, the man. And I was like, wow. So I don't know if men are even aware of that, but there's probably a lot of that happening
for sure. Too. Okay. All right, we went on
a whole. That's like a whole nother podcast.
But okay, so let's get back to you. So then you guys fast forward when you were teaching. I mean, you were a life coach to so many women, and you were telling them all about this, like about what we just talked about, cheating, how to navigate your marriage and all of these things. How was your marriage in that time?
Yeah, so it's interesting because one of my trauma coping mechanisms is disassociation. So what that means is like I forget things. I'm not a type of person that can say like, oh, it was 1996 and I was like, this is where I lived and I remember like people are like that. Me, everything's a blur. So even right now, it's like I don't even remember my marriage. Like it's so weird. It's such a past blur now. And what I mean by that is like I do believe there was a lot of our marriage that was motion based. Like it was like robotic. It was like survival. It was going through the seasons like, okay, now we're in the league. And everyone who's currently in the league or has been in it knows when you're in the league, you're in the motions, because it's like the man has to stay focused on keeping his career, his position on the team, and the woman just has to kind of follow suit. So a lot of us put a lot of things on hold. We don't want to stress him out. We don't want to talk too much about what's the future plans because we kind of have to stay right here. So we did the league thing, and then once he retired, I remember I have a regret. This is something I want to speak to the women. When your man retires, there's got to be some grace, compassion, understanding, and awareness to what he's going through. This is an identity loss. This is a death. This man has eaten, slept, and breathed this career to stay at the top 1%. I was not thinking that. I didn't even know that because we didn't communicate. So he wasn't telling me. So men, tell your woman what you're going through. Right. Be vulnerable. Tell your girl like, babe, I don't even want to wake up tomorrow. That's how deep it gets for these guys, because think about, they do this one thing since they're little boys, or at least since high school, college, and now it's just over. So for me, I was like, yes, the league is over. Finally, we get to get our house. We get to settle down. Half of the hoes are going to be eliminated because like now he can't even say he's an NFL player anymore. Right. It's like you're former cool. Like
yeah, like you're washed now. Like, yes.
He's mine.
Right.
I made it.
Right.
So I like that. This is the thing. Humans are going to live from their perspective. Yeah. My perspective was like, thank you, Jesus. My man is home. No more traveling. No more away games. Like that's what I meant by half the hoes. Like I only got to worry about like the here.
City, yeah. Only California. I'm not competing with the rest of y'all no more.
So I admit, and I wish one day me and him could have my dream and goal is that me and him will get to have a sit down and like talk about what our marriage was like. I would love to hear his experience of being my husband, because as much as I want to say, like, as much as it can easily seem like he was the wrong one, I'm fully responsible that our marriage didn't work, right? And so I don't blame him at all. And I would love for us to be able to look back and be like, yeah, you were selfish as fuck. Like you didn't even stop and ask how I was feeling when the league was over. You were just ready to keep moving. And maybe he didn't. Maybe he also didn't stop to feel. I don't know. I don't, because he literally wore a poker face and it was like we just kept trucking along. So I think if he would have shown some signs, I would have seen it. But to me, I would have seen the signs if I was present. Yeah. I would have felt it because I'm very intuitive. Yeah. But I was such like a disconnected robot that I didn't see it. So we went through the motions. We had the babies. We did the baby showers. We did all the things. Again, our marriage, I thought it was good. I'd never had any, like, even to the day when it ended, I was like, that did come out of nowhere. Because it wasn't like we had any major elephants in the room that it was like, I can't take this anymore. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was literally, so do you want me to just get into how it turned?
Yeah, what
so
happened?
It was like we were hitting all the boxes. I remember when I was pregnant with Nola, my baby. So she's now 5. She'll be 6 this summer.
And that's your last one.
She's the last one. I don't know if she's the last baby.
Yeah, like she's right now.
Where's her power?
Right, no, for right now.
But yeah, she was our last baby. And I remember being pregnant with her. So since my third daughter, Charlie's now is 10. So 10 years into it, I was like starting to wake up. And what I mean by wake up is I started to break out of my roboticness and I started to understand what conscious living was. And that's really where my coaching business came from, because I was like being enlightened to your autopilot, your childhood trauma is driving you. Like, I attracted a man who was disconnected. I attracted a man who abandoned me because I was abandoning myself. I was disconnected from myself. I had my daddy issues was, you're not good enough, because if you were, I would have been there for you. My mommy issues were, you know, like I don't know exactly what I inherited from my mom, but my mom was a busy single mother, and I'm not parent shaming. My mom is a freaking angel. She's a hero. She is incredible. So I'm not saying, but every parent, no matter how amazing they are, we also have damage, including me to my kids.
Right.
So my mom, because she was a working mother, there was a little bit of unavailableness. So I'm sure I inherited, like, I don't want to burden anybody. I'm a burden. I'm just going to isolate. And if something's going to happen, it's up to me.
Right.
So I became very independent, very inward, disconnected. And so when I started waking up to those things, I started doing the work, and I started healing my little girl. And by healing, I started becoming more expressive, and I started becoming like, oh, I actually like this and I like that. And I think the more I started to wake up, the more the feminine is scary.
Right.
It's scary.
Especially for men.
For men, it's like, if you think of the ocean, you cannot contain the feminine when it's fully expressed. And I think I started becoming a little bit too much. And I met one of my clients, became a really good friend. And she's this like Insta baddie. Like, she just looks like IG's finest, like literally drop dead freaking gorgeous. And when I met her, I was like, you're the mirror of the part of me that I want to be, like the sexual, sensual, like confident, I know my worth, like, like, you know, all of that. And I wanted that. And so I was like clinging to her. So we started doing like monthly girls dates. Now, I wasn't in the club with her. I wasn't doing anything. She was literally like, okay, we're going to spice up your marriage. And, ooh, you need to wear this for your man. And she was like trying to give me like the street smarts, like how to be like that sexy girl, because she was still single and dating. So it was fresh for her to like be in her element, but to do it for my husband. She was not trying to pull me away from home, but because of perception and judgment, he started thinking that she was going to pull me into the streets, and like I was going to hang out with single girls and then probably meet other men and all that. And she was never doing that. She was literally trying to like help me like spice up the marriage. And so I was like really confused, because I knew what it was. I'm like, you're not going to judge her. I don't judge your guy friends. I don't judge your cheating ass married friends. I don't tell you can't. I mean, now we look at what he's going through. His ex-business partner is a pedophile. I mean, he's going through a case. Like, I can't speak that he is, but I can speak on what he's being accused of. So allegedly he's literally touching kids. I didn't tell you couldn't be around that man, even though I saw a red flag. So I was like, you don't get to tell me who I'm friends with. So now my whatever was coming out. And for the first time, I was no longer being so submissive. Like, okay, daddy, anything you say goes. Like, I was starting to push back, and I was starting to be like, no, like, you're not going to. So
but at the time you didn't know that
I didn't know
so
that.
I want to make clear so they don't think that you were condoning that type of.
No, and thank you for like the reason why I even plugged that is because
his judgment of character clearly was not
even though I didn't know he was a pedophile, I always was like, I don't know about that one. Like and I would say stuff like, I don't like how he moves on social media. I don't like how he moves in certain ways, and I would call him out, and then he would push back like, this is business. Like, you like the money that's coming home. You like that you have a roof over your head. So I was like, okay, and I backed back. Like, you're right. Let me keep business, and let me keep house.
Stay in my lane.
So I stayed in my lane. So what I was saying was, you stay in yours now. If I trust you, I mean, he had a facility. So there was women, I would be like, why is old girl driving from an hour away to train? Like, she doesn't have a 24-hour fitness in her backyard. So I knew what was going on over there, but I didn't get to complain about that, because when I did, you're being crazy and those girls are bringing business and blah, blah. So I'm like, cool, let me be quiet. And I would pipe down and back. Because I was teaching at that time. I hadn't gone through his phone in about 3 years at that time. And so I was like way more like mature when it came to that. I was no longer trying to be down his neck. I was letting him do what he needed to do. So my point was that I want that same respect.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. So then people don't hear like, not her knowing, but she did not know that.
I didn't know. And
when like through life, like when my husband is around people or like we meet new people, I instantly feel an energy, and I say, watch out, or like something isn't right. Something's just not right. We'll see what happens, but like note it, just note that. And like, I'm always right, but you had that instinct, and I feel most women do, but we lose it. things.
And thank you for cleaning it up, because I already know there's going to be like this is why I've been silent, because like sound bites of all my content was making it into court. You know, I'm being accused of things still, so I am in a lot of litigation, but I do want to say something, that this is why, until I have the verdict on that case, and until some more dirt and darkness that's going to surface comes out, I won't speak on it. But I will say that I know for a fact, like I said, infidelity and amongst other things isn't what took my marriage out. There was something in me that was like, something's not right. And so in hindsight, I wouldn't be surprised if, I'm not saying that he did know about these things, but like birds of a feather flock together, who knows? So I feel like Spirit, God was literally saving me, because do you know that when I finally said, and this is what I mean when I say I don't know if he left me or if I left him, I was the one who said, something's not right anymore. Like, we've been trying to make this work for a year, because so when I met that girl and I started expressing myself, it was a year's time that he was just like, I don't like who you are. I don't like that girl. And he gave me the ultimatum of being her friend or not. And I chose, you don't get to tell me. So at that point is when I think that marriage ended, because I basically disrespected him to the point of like, she doesn't respect me. And so I think that's when the cord broke, not when the marriage ended, but when the cord broke. Now, that being said, in that year, fast forward, I came home from a retreat and I said, I don't think we're going to fix this, but I'm willing to try. I think the first step is for us to pause and just take a separation. And I said, we don't have to leave home. Like, you don't have to move out. I don't have to move out. But let's just like pause the partnership in the way of like, I'm going to focus on what is happening in me, and you focus on what's happening in you. And then let's just keep the kids intact. And he was like, no, I'll leave. You stay here. We're done. And he had a plan. Well, I found out he had a whole mistress. Like, that's a whole nother story. But I think when the cord broke, that girl was how she seeped in, because he was like, F her. And he started a whole nother life. So when I gave the words, he was like,
perfect.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Perfect. I've been waiting.
Yeah.
I've been waiting. That's
all you had to say
like.
was go.
He wasn't going to be the one. And a lot of women, but one particular woman told me, she said a lot of men won't leave because it is cheaper to keep her. It is easier to leave the wife at home and then just go do your other life outside. So men don't really have to move around. Women, it's harder for us to stay in that because we're emotional. We're like, every day we can't feel, we don't feel sexual, we don't feel any of that. So when I said that, he was out. That was in January. By February, his shit was, I came home one weekend, his stuff was gone. And it was like, oh shit, he really meant it. Like, I didn't know that he actually meant it. And that's when I said, I had that conversation, like, why didn't you chase me? Not only did you not chase me and try, he's like, I did try. Because in that year, we did marriage counseling. We did the things, but nothing was working because I don't think we were really trying. I think we were just going through the motions of, let's say we tried, but it was done. He was done. Wow. And I thank him. I was talking to my aunt the other day. I'm like, Auntie, if he didn't leave me, I don't know, I would have stayed probably. I don't know because I was just like, I couldn't fathom actually breaking up my family.
And too, like, you had lived more life with him than you had without. And that's so scary.
It's so scary. And then with 5 kids, and he told me that day, like, he looked at me and he was like, you think another man's gonna take you? You got 5 babies, you're 30 something. And inside I was like I felt my whole self melting, like, oh my God, I should just put up with this. Like, he's right. But something in my spirit, my best friend said, when you leave a marriage, you don't leave for another man. You leave because it's better to be by yourself than to be there. And so I was just like, even though he didn't fight for me, I allowed myself to grieve, and I didn't beg him to come back. I never called him. I had like a couple calls where it was like, are you sure you're cool? Like, are you sure this is what you want? And he didn't even respond to that. He was like, leave me alone. He blocked me, cut me off, and I literally haven't had a conversation with him in 2 years. Wow. Not one conversation. Everything has been legal, like through lawyers. Wow. And that is the most disheartening thing, to go, like, to spend your life with somebody and have children with them, and they won't even speak to you. So that's why I said my prayer is that we can get to terms with not being enemies. And I get it. He thinks he's going to hate that I'm even talking about this, but this is the truth. We got to face the truth to move forward.
And I think you have so much grace for him. Because, and that was something we talked about before, of like, it's not a bash of him, it's the story. And like, there's so many women out there who need to hear this story, and men who can also benefit from this conversation. Because if a man hears and says, all right, well then let me try this. Let me talk to my girl and tell her, here's what I'm trying to do. And that could be like, you're an advocate. And what I love is like, through all that you've gone through, you're still a lover girl. Like, you still believe in love. You still want your happily ever after. Yeah, you're like, future. Yeah, like,
I got 5 queens.
And you,
like,
right.
we're just more love, more people to cook and clean.
But like, let's be real. If a man wants you, he's gonna want you.
No,
it don't matter what
look,
you've done, who you have, like how many kids. They do not.
That was
care.
the first thing I learned was like, oh no, like they are begging me to take me and my babies. Now I'm like, I get to pick. And now, don't get me wrong, I do believe a lot of men just love single women, and they'll tell us anything that we want to hear, because they know, like, she don't got that much time, her babies come first, so I can get, like, there's reels out there, you may not have seen them because it's not your archetype right now, but like I see them all the time where it's like there's this one and it's like a single mom, it's like me, like it's like a guy getting dragged off the floor, and it's like when a single mom, like, it doesn't have her kids or something, right? And it's like basically like get in here, because that's what it is. It's like we want to be loved, we want, so we can get taken advantage of. We really can, because men will tell us anything we want to hear, but they won't really wife us. And that's what I'm grateful for, the men who have put me up on game and not taking advantage of my vulnerability and my naivety, my greenness. Is like, they were like, oh, this bitch, like, I can swallow her whole, because I was 18 when I met my husband, so I don't know anything.
You haven't been in the dating world.
I haven't been in the world, like, so they were about to swallow me whole, but I have so much favor, and because I had the tools and I had her playbook and I had all this awareness, it was like I was dually seeing how oh, he's really telling me this and I'm believing it, but then because I know just actions matching words and stuff, I was like, nah. And so, you know, I say that to say that I do know that the pickings are a lot slimmer of a man who really is meaning he'll take me and my 5 kids, not just take my body when I'll give it to him. But there's men out there. I know my man is out there. It's just, we're not ready for each other yet. We haven't found each other. So I'm very much a lover. I'm not a bitter. I've always believed this about love. Love requires risk. And what I mean by that is you have to risk getting hurt, and you're going to be hurt. Like Bob Marley said, people are gonna hurt you, but find the one worth, like, going through the hurt with. Or perfect. My uncle would say, everyone has shit and it all stinks, so just find someone you're willing to put up with, because you're gonna go to some man and it's always gonna be something. And with the woman, vice versa, you know? So
okay, so once you guys got or you decided everyone threw in the towel, it was done, your divorce got messy, and like you were pretty vocal in the early parts of when it first started to pop off. It was like we were getting updates
to cry for help, like,
like,
y'all come get this.
Like, and we were talking, like, I was in your messages like, oh hell no, girl, like, and we had only met once or twice, and I'm like ready to go for you, you know. But like we were all like invested in it as much, like, business started booming for you personally, because one, people are nosy, and it wasn't necessarily everyone cared. So walk me through, if you can, what would be your advice? Because some men are generous, like, man, you're the mother of my children, I'm gonna make sure you're good, I want to put you, you know, like, even if we're not together. And I personally know men like that who have been like, like, they're like, you gave me your whole life, you gave me these beautiful kids. And then there's some who are like, oh, you don't want to be with me. We pull the whole rug right under you.
Me and my girl were laughing about this, because unfortunately, there's a lot of us athletes' wives going through both sides. So that's why I'm saying, guys, yes, to the ones of you who are just taking care of business and you're chalking it up. We know it hurts to pay that money. We get it. It would hurt me too. But the universe, God is going to take care of you for taking care of what's yours. Now, I also equally understand the rug getting pulled, because it's like, if I can't have you anymore, then you're not going to benefit. I understand, but it is ego, and ego is absence of God, and it doesn't work in the long term. But what I will say is, like, me and one of my friends that is also going through similar, we were like, girl, they don't want us to walk away with nothing. Like, they want our wigs snatched, our lashes off. Like, if you have Botox, let that shit dry up and get wrinkly again. Your nails can't be done. You are going to leave, like, you know, like, they want us naked, just no dignity. We can't even have our dignity walking out of this. And it's like, please, like, give me something, right? So I will say this. This is the chapter of the last 2 years that I'm not ready to talk about in detail, but I am going to be only because there's literally still legal things on the table, right? So like we aren't even officially fully divorced. Like we're still fighting over that. So that says enough. He's not the one that said, you had my 5 babies. You gave me 18 years of your life. You know, you could have been doing other things, but you were here. So I'm going to make sure that this is fair. And because what I will say is what I was begging for, because, okay, let me back up. Cause we talked about some of the, like, I want to make sure this podcast is not just tea and my business. I want it to be tangible, for like for what people can take, men and women. So like when we got married, I was the girl that was like, I'm not signing a prenup. Because I'm marrying you till death do us part. I come from a legacy of women who stand by their men no matter what. So you don't have to worry about me. And I'm not signing a prenup because to me, contracts are real. So if you're writing if this happens, you're basically saying that's going to happen. And so I see how now in hindsight, I am such an advocate of prenups because marriage at the end of the day is a business. Because at the end of the day, we are all individual souls. We are all one. Really, if we're going to look at it from a religious standpoint, we're all the body of Christ. So we're marrying our brothers and sisters like in Christ, not in like incest, right? So my point of saying that is let's stop with the literalness that something is going to last forever. Nothing lasts forever. So even I heard this once that even marriages where the 2 people are married forever, that marriage is going to look 3 to 5 different ways over time. You're going to have to reinvent. You're going to go through shit. Death is going to happen. Life is going to happen. Money changes. Everybody, no matter how much money you have, goes through the ebbs and flows of money. That's life. So what you have to realize you're signing up for is just like in a business, anything could happen. These 2 people can start to disagree at some point. You want to have a paper to protect. And this is the perspective I want women to know, because men have no problem with the prenup usually. It's usually the women. So for the women, ladies, I wish I would have seen it like this. It's like, if I had a prenup that says, okay, I'm going to give you babies, I'm going to give you my work as like the homemaker, because that is a job. It is the most important job, to raise our babies and keep the home up. Because when you see a single man, like my ex now, he has his mom, his sister, and his girlfriend filling my role, taking care of the babies when he has them, doing their hair, feeding them. So he's still not, it's not like he's cooking, cleaning. He didn't replace me. He replaced with himself. He replaced me with 3 other women. So for us, it's like, if I give you all of that and I'm going to do my part to hold down the family in that way, in writing, protect yourself. Like for every year that I did that, I would like X amount of money. So for example, if you know your worth going into that marriage, right now, the job you're giving up makes $150,000 a year, then maybe write in the prenup, I want $150,000 a year to compensate for 3 years after divorce so I can get back on my feet. Like I think a prenup should be reasonable, because I do agree, once the marriage ends, the marriage ends. Go, like that's your chance to reinvent. So you don't get to just feed and eat off of this past thing, but say you want to move on. So I understand the limbo, but you got to be realistic. And they say for I was with my husband 18 years. They say it's going to take me about 9 years to recover, about half the time you were with that person. So maybe you write that in, like, for the amount of years we're together, I want half of that in direct compensation, and then I'll take a percentage. Or I don't even know how prenups are written, to be honest. You're like, we didn't even get that. Right, we never even did that, because I was like, I'm not doing it. But in hindsight, here's the thing. Everyone tells me, you got 5 babies by an NFL player, you're good. Newsflash, ladies, it takes money to activate the system. So what happens when the rug gets up under you? I'm talking, my bank account was like, boop, he took all the money out of the card that I had access to. So I went from having access to money to not having access to money. So then it was like, I can't hire a lawyer because I don't have any money. And you said business is booming. My business didn't boom. Here's what I did. Her playbook should have boomed, so I thought, because it was going amazing. It was so like it was before. It was booming right before. That's what I meant. And then what happened was, I thought, okay, I'm going to be good because I'm going to keep booming. It was devastating. So now my world gets flipped upside down, and I'm supposed to still like, okay, guys, so, and teach about love when I'm like, the man that I dedicated my world to just left, and I don't have $1 in the bank, and now I'm trying to figure out how to keep the lights on in this $1 million home with no money. And then like, you want to go get a job, but you've been a stay-at-home mom since day one. So it was like, I knew I could, because single mothers do it all the time, but I couldn't, like, physically, emotionally, I didn't know how to recalibrate and still get my kids to school, still go to soccer, still cook and clean and take care of them, and go get a job to pay. Or, and I wasn't aligned to her playbook. I'm not going to sit in front of people and sell something that I didn't believe in. And I didn't know my beliefs. I didn't want to teach women from a hurt place and be like, F men, don't trust them, get a bag, sis, because like, I didn't want to come off like that. So I had to pull back. And then it was like, okay, now my business is gone. And everyone was like, you can do this, you can do that. You're so beautiful. You're so talented. And it was like, but I was done. Frozen, I was dead. I was frozen. So prenup, I believe in. And then for men, because especially in our world, you guys are 1%ers. We know you're competitive. We know that they are winners. I think what happens is they flip a switch, and it's like, okay, now it's not us against the world, it's me against you. You're an op. And so you're an op. And at that point, when you're going against a man who has influence, resources, other men who are like, bro, do this, move your money over here,
because they come from a world that this is
groom them for this.
This is normal. Like, this is normal. Common.
Like, oh, here's what you got to do.
Boom, I'll send you the number.
I got you. Call my guy. And they clean things up so quick that you're over here, you don't even have time to grieve. And then you're trying to still take care of kids. In my case, 5 of them. So it was just like, it was a mess. So I would just say to men to like, surround yourself with other men who have gone through it, and try your best to be realistic. And for women, be realistic. Like, that's why I was saying, like, I don't think I'm asking for too much, because what I did was I was like, okay, I promised you when I said I don't want to sign a prenup that I wasn't going to take you for everything you got. So I relinquished my rights to your retirement. I don't even want your house, but let me stay in the house for like a year, pay for it so I can live here and I can keep working and get on my feet. And I even offered him, like, let's just live together for a year. I know you want to do you. I'm going to go and just focus on building my business or whatever. But so basically I was trying to tell him, let's live in the house, but on his weekend without the kids, he would go somewhere, and then on my weekend we would alternate. And I was like, that's a good way where we can, because we can't afford 2 households, so that way you don't have to pay for my apartment or my house and this one. Let's just keep us intact. Let's not sell this property, because we start doing things so irrationally that it's like,
hold
to
on,
have
there's some good
property
things
as an
in
asset.
here.
Like, one of us should keep this property. We shouldn't split it and then just get rid of it, because now we're both out of the house. And it's the thing where on paper he's saying he's broke, so I don't know if he's really broke or if he's just telling me he's broke so he doesn't have to pay me. So I'm like, if you really are broke, which is reality, because 80% of us end in divorce and 78 end in bankruptcy. So chances are he actually doesn't have a lot of money. So it's like, let's not do this so irrationally. Let's be smart and let's build together, because at the end of the day, these kids are the only ones suffering. I'm cool. Like, at that point, I was kind of excited about I was very, as much as I loved him, we were both done. We were both ready for something else. He had a girl and I was ready to just wild out. And not even with men, just I can go anywhere. I can get dressed up and not feel like my husband might think I'm out of pocket. I can just do anything. So I loved it. I loved it. I loved getting dressed up. I loved getting the attention. I loved just being out. So that didn't work. So he left. I had the house. And then I think he came to his senses, like, that's my house. So then we got in the fight. He wants it back. So I actually, like, most people don't know this. I told you I was going to tell you something I hadn't said. So most people don't know. I bowed out. I said, I'm worth more than, if this house is worth 1 point something, I'm worth more than 1 point something. I'm not about to stress myself out over $1 million house. God is my provider. So I'm giving him too much power by fighting him. I understand most people don't agree with this. I understand that that's owed to me and I should get it. But if he doesn't want to willingly give it to me, I am no longer I have spent so much in legal fees. I am so in debt with legal fees that I could have just taken that 80 grand that I spent, because I've already spent like 60 grand and I owe 20. So I'm so in debt with legal fees. I could have flipped businesses with that 80 grand.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Right.
So I wish I would have just been like, write me a check for $100K and I'll forfeit everything.
Yeah.
But I didn't think of that. And I also give this to my ex, that he took care of me while I was with him. You know, like, so yes, my alimony should be pretty high because I had a very good standard of living, but I'm okay just knowing like,
you had a good life.
I had a good life, and he invested in me by letting me invest in myself. I've spent over $500,000 in just coaching, mindset coaching, retreats, books, training, certifications. So that to me is my alimony was paid beforehand.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? He invested in me, so no one can take the value of what I'm worth away from me. So when I look at my worth and I know I could make $1 million a month if I wanted to, you think I'm about to fight for $1 million home? Right. And I just walked away. I gave it to him. Like, here, you can have it. I'm gonna go live with my mom, and we'll figure out the fight later. But right now, the fight is taken away from me getting on my feet. And I'm not going to be this type of mother where I'm just broke and tired and just like, like I couldn't catch a break.
Yeah.
So that's what I can say. All the details, it'll be in a book one day, I guess. I don't know. I don't even know if I'll say it.
We're going to do a recap in a couple years.
We'll do a recap.
When it's all done, we'll be like, all right, we're getting
I've gone through some shit.
Yeah.
Like, there is so much stuff that is just like, dang, really? But I'm not even going to put him on Front Street like that.
And I think like some of us know, because when it was happening, you were like Instagram live. I'm like, oh hell, what happened today? Like, and it wasn't even like I was like it was more so like I felt like I was going through it with you, and like even though you shared so much to where like when you share so much with the world, you feel like that's your life too. Like you fully invest in people. So like I wasn't watching to be like, what's tea? Like it was more so like, oh my God, like how can I help? Like like what is happening? And I think it also woke something up in me too. Like I love my husband and like he's an incredible man, but it also made me think like shit. And he said, you got to figure out your stuff. Because no matter what, like and like finishing school, stuff like that, like your degree is something no one can take away from you. So like even if like even if it's just all gone, okay, let me start applying for jobs, because a lot of jobs like you have to have a bachelor's, like you know. So it's like those little things were, and like my husband respects it. Like this podcast, he's like, do your thing. Like you need to have like like I'm supporting. And he's like, if you don't, that's okay too. If you want to just sit in the house and be cool, like that's fine. But if you want to go out there and tell the world everything, like I love that too. You do you. So I'm like, cool. Like, and that's a blessing too. But we've had to grow together and be very honest and have uncomfortable conversations of how we're changing. What would be your advice to a woman who's listening, who's scared to leave because of financial reason? Woo. Okay. We're going to stop there for now, but don't worry. Her advice will be there when we kick off part 2. I know there are women out there who need to hear Charlie's story, not to compare, but to feel seen, encouraged, and supported. We'll have part 2 coming soon, and you will not want to miss this. In the meantime, though, share your thoughts on this week's episode with me on social media. If you haven't already, please download this episode and follow the podcast. See you next time.